Okay, so for the newcomers, ask your questions. Hello, Rohit. What's going on, man? This is actually live from my smartphone, which is why I'm actually leaning back and forth because I'm looking for your questions. Looking for your questions, fellas. Tell me, how many of you are into bug bounties? I don't speak English very well. How can I improve my vocabulary in IT? Well, you can use Duolingo. It's not, that's a mobile application. That's a smartphone application. I think you can also use it on the web. Can you guys hear me well? Let me know. So you can improve your English questions by using Duolingo, which is a web application to learn a new language. This is not actually specific to cybersecurity or penetration testing, but if you want to learn a new language, you can use Duolingo. I actually use Duolingo to learn a new language for now. Yeah, it's really good. Okay, so Ahmed, how can I start my cybersecurity as pen tester? Okay, what do you mean? Not really sure that I understand your question. How can I start my cybersecurity as pen tester? What's your age? Are you in college? Are you actually um, having some knowledge on computer networks? Do you know any networking? Give me something here to work with. Do you know anything about penetration testing, ethical hacking, cybersecurity? Tell me more. In the meanwhile, I'm gonna jump onto Bogdan's question. Hello, do you think that formal knowledge of cryptography, some of the math behind it, helps in the cybersecurity in general? Of course, of course. I do think it helps depending on what aspect of cybersecurity you're focusing on. Cybersecurity is a very large field, so cryptography may be very useful if you're someone looking to protect someone else's data. So if you're working in blue team, so let's take an example of a blue teamer, and you're actually handling data in storage or data in transit, any of those two, you cryptography is going to be very useful to you because you'll be probably working on trying to find the best ways to actually handle data in storage securely and also data in transit. I've actually talked to a friend and a potential collaborator of mine yesterday about the fact that we need to figure a way of how to actually have them better preserve their data because they have very sensitive big data, so we have to take care of it. So cybersecurity and everything math is really good in cryptography, and everything math is really good in cybersecurity. So you'll have to probably see how it applies. I mean, if you think of it, cryptography can also be useful if you're a red teamer. Depending, you would have to know the kind of algorithm you're dealing with when, for example, you want to decrypt some sort of a data, or when you actually want to understand the type of algorithm a function is using. So it's a broad question, but it's the bottom line is that cryptography is definitely helpful in cybersecurity because cryptography is part of cybersecurity. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? I'm not really sure how to access the comments with okay, so let's see. Okay, Bogdan, so hopefully that answers your question. Lihari, I love your program. Thanks. Okay, but I'm looking for IT vocabulary. I would actually probably suggest to start a very basic course in cybersecurity. I would recommend the Cybery. in this case, but I don't have, so I'm an instructor on Cybery, and my latest experience with them is not actually good because it was very uncool for them. My course, so for example, my course on Cybery is free, was free up until it became very popular. So then I promoted it, like I posted about it on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and a lot of people started sharing it, and all of a sudden they made it paid. So they put it under a paywall. So I don't recommend cybersecurity. I used to recommend Cybery as a good resource to actually learn. There are a few good courses to expand your vocabulary in IT and cybersecurity, but there are other places as well. You can look for free courses on Coursera, or you can even watch a lot of wonderful, extremely well-made YouTube videos that are actually free. So you can actually check out the Cyber Mentors channel, which is definitely going to expand your cybersecurity and IT vocabulary if you go through his like 25 plus hours of video on network penetration testing. All right, let's see more questions. Wow, there are quite a few questions. How Eric today is new is top in bug bounty. I wish I would know that. I've actually looked at his profile a couple of days ago, and I think he's really, really good in automating. Um, I'm also trying to expand my automation skills in bug bounty, especially when it comes to recon and actually expanding the attack surface, because I think that's crucial to actually finding endpoints and also different applications that you could further look into. I will try to approach today is new Eric and actually have a session with him, a Q&A session like I had with the Cyber Mentor and with Hackersploit and with Michael Asalvia. I'm actually going to try to pick his brain if he's approachable. So look for that in the future. So, Rohit, I'm kind of new, so I wanted to learn Burp Suite, but someone told me to use that for newcomers. What do you think? Both of them are great. I don't have too big of an experience with Zap. This this is auto-focusing and I don't like it. Just a second. Okay, so Zap or Burp Suite. I think both are great. Burp Suite, the community edition, which is free, doesn't give you the entire power of the program, unless you buy the professional edition or it's the pro edition, which is like $40 a month or something, or 500 a year, something like that. It's well worth it. But you get the free version is probably gonna suffice it if you're starting in bug bounties. However, you get a lot of the features of the pro edition of Burp into Zap. So if you have Kali Linux or Parrot OS installed on your system, or even if you have Windows installed on your system, you can just get Zap from OWASP's website and actually start working with it. I'm not really sure. I mean, I think both of the tools are really good, but it might be that Burp is more popular than Zap, but this doesn't mean that Zap isn't as good. I actually started working with Zap a couple of days ago. I think it was last week when I was doing this thing on a bounty program, and I wanted to test the capabilities of Zap. And I actually started using it because it was pre-installed in Parrot OS. Yeah, so it's not that one it's harder or more difficult than the other. It's just that there are two tools, two proxies that are used for basically the same purpose. And you'll probably find a ton of tutorials online on how to use them. And I'm actually probably gonna start making tutorials on on Zap. So be on the lookout for that. I'm not sure that I'll probably do some how to use Zap for beginner bug bounty hunters or something like that. Let me know, guys, if you want that. Okay, let's see more questions. Okay, so Rohit, hope that answers your questions. Ahmed, I already a senior mobile web developer. I assume that you're saying that you are already a senior mobile web developer. I want to switch my career to be a mobile web pen tester. Wow, that's awesome, man. If you're a mobile developer, you probably know a lot of the intricacies of a mobile application. And if you're a, let's say, Android, if you know a lot of Android development, you probably I'm not really sure if you know how to set up a proxy for a mobile, or how to set up an environment, how to set up an environment to actually do penetration testing or bug bounty hunting on a mobile application. Uh, it took me a while until I figured it out. I think it took me a couple of days until I was able to actually get requests from a mobile application, and to set up a lab environment for a bug bounty program that had a mobile application. But once I figured it out, it's actually it's an automation process. So you just set it and forget it. It might be a bit tricky to get SSL unpinning, but still, it's not super complicated. Since you are a mobile developer, you're gonna have advantage of over the rest of us, because, like I said, you already know the intricacies of a mobile application. For example, you would be want to focus at first, you might want to do static analysis or just basic code analysis until you figure out how to set up an environment, how to set up the environment to actually get the requests made by the mobile application. You can either use your smartphone, or you can use an emulator such as Genymotion, or even a virtual machine. Basically, Genymotion is a virtual machine, but I think it works locally. It works with VirtualBox from what I know, but you could also set up one yourself in VirtualBox. So at first, like I said, you might want to be focusing on decompiling the application using tools like APK tools. And also there's this program called APK Studio, which does everything for you. And it gives you the Smalley code, and also it tries to get the Java files of the mobile application, and you can look through the code and try to find potential weak spots. Like, I don't know, maybe you'll find some keys inside the code, or maybe you'll find some endpoints. And this is really good when you start with bug hunting on mobile applications, because once you get through that, you, like I said, shift towards intercepting the requests from the application. And that's really, I find that's the fun part of it. So hope you understand that you have an advantage over the rest of the people that don't do mobile application penetration testing, and hopefully you're gonna take advantage of it. All right, let's see. Do I have to learn Python and HTML to get into bug bounties? I mean, I've already answered this question in previous live streams. You don't have to know Python. HTML, disregard that. I mean, HTML is not a programming language, it's a scripting language. It's a markup language, not a scripting language. You don't have to know Python to actually get into penetration testing or bug bounty hunting, but you would be far better off if you know Python or Bash or other scripting languages. Ruby, I think Ruby scripting languages, if I am correct. So you'd be better off because you'll know how to actually code your own tools, and you'll probably know how to automate steps of the process, of your methodology, if you're doing penetration testing, or of your bug bounty, not only recon, but different steps of your bug bounty process. your bug bounty methodology, which is something that you would want to develop yourself. Um, so I've been doing bug bounties for quite a few months now. I have not been very successful in terms of actually finding a bug that would pay. I did find bugs, but what I've learned a lot is I've actually developed my own methodology. I've coded quite a few tools that actually help me tremendously in the automation of the recon process. It's like I'm just putting a domain there, and it actually looks through a lot of public resources to get subdomains, to actually test them, to actually see which one is up, to take screenshots and all that stuff. So I wouldn't be able to do that if I wouldn't actually know Bash and Python. And I'm not really good with Bash so far, but I just learn it on the go. So if I need something in Bash, I just go ahead and look for the code that I actually want, and I'm just implementing it kind of with modifications. In terms of Python, I think I have quite a few tools in Python, but not as many as I have in Bash, because Bash seems more useful when it comes to developing like these sorts of tools. Okay, hopefully that answers your questions or your question. Let's see, what else do we have here? What do I look out for while doing bug bounty? I don't understand that question. Can you please be more specific? What level of Python you had before you get your OSCP? I knew Python before getting into the OSCP, so I have got into the OSCP actually. So it was last year, and I think I bought the course in May, and so it was 2019 May when I started the OSCP. And then I learned Python back in 2015 or so. So it was like I already had a couple of years of Python. But I don't think you need that as much. If you get yourself up the ground with Python, if you get the basics of Python, so I have my mouse here, which is connected to my phone, because otherwise I would be swiping with the finger. So if you go through a basic Python course and through a basic Bash course, you would probably understand most of what you need in your OSCP training. Yeah. All right. Hope that answers your question. Let's see more questions. I'm planning to take CCNA RNS. I don't know what RNS is. What do you recommend for studying? I don't have any knowledge in IT. I just have A+ IT fundamentals. Well, I only know, so the only advice or suggestion that I could give you in certifications is with respect to the OICP. I don't know much about the rest of the certification, so I don't want to speak without actually knowing what I'm speaking about. I don't know everything, so I'm sorry, but I don't have an informed opinion on that. What is your opinion about quantum cryptography? I don't know what that is. I tried looking, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I looked into quantum computing. It seems really interesting, but more than that is far beyond my level right now. What I know is that you can program quantum computers in the browser for free on IBM's website and on some other websites. I think the concept is to actually program qubits, which can be 0 and 1 at the same time. It's a bit mind-boggling. So for that, you'd probably have to know more about the quantum quantum mechanics, I guess. I'm not really sure. I mean, you'd have to know a lot of quantum theory. I don't even have an answer to that question. Okay. Uh, yeah, please make video on Zap. I will try. Okay, greetings. Started my first bug bounty today. Welcome aboard. Be sure to have a thick skin because for some of us it takes quite a hell of a long time until they actually see fruitful results. But you might be a privileged one, you might know more than a lot of us, and you might get your bounties faster. But if you don't, just stick at it. So, your question. And I found something that might be interesting already. Well, congratulations, dude. I kind of envy you. So your Mojo Dojo. Thanks for putting out this content. You're welcome. Dre, just got my EC Council Certified Security Analyst ECSA. Okay, great. Penetration testing certification. If I add the OSCP on top of that, there are more chances of me getting a job more. So if you add OSCP to the certification that you already have, well, yeah, of course, it increases um, the chances to get a job, because when recruiters actually look for your profile, they don't actually look for your profile, let's say on LinkedIn or on Indeed.com or on other platforms. What they actually do is they set up filters. Like, for example, if an employer wants a candidate, it almost fell. So if your employer wants a candidate who has the OSCP and, I don't know, GXPN, for example, he's gonna actually, the recruiter is gonna actually filter for those two certifications. So they're gonna look for people who have both certifications, and if you have both of them, the chances that you at least get your foot in the door are higher than someone that only has one certification. So, of course, certifications can get your foot in the door. They not necessarily reflect the level of skill and knowledge of someone, but they can be very useful and very helpful. They do not guarantee a job, in my opinion. They can be very helpful, but they are not a guarantee. It's the same as someone without a certification but with really good skill can get a job much faster than someone with, let's say, 5 or 6 certifications. So it's all contextual. Okay, let's see. Hope that answers your question, Dre. It's Dre, yeah. All right, thank you for your answer. What else? With firewall in between, say I'm in a VPN environment and the target CTF IP is in a different network, how to ping it or scan the range of IP available to the CTF challenge? I don't know much about that. I mean, we'd have to be more specific to actually get a solid answer on that. My company has given budget, so hello, Hema or Herna. Let's see how many questions do we still have here. Okay, so my company has given budget for CSX fundamental certification. Is it okay to go for it? I know it is very at basic level. Still just want to add the certifications in my kitty. Later plan for OSCP. I mean, did you actually just voice type this? Okay. Well, if you have little to no knowledge about the field, and if this certification is really a fundamental one, then just go for it. And later, when you know some networking, some basic ethical hacking, then go into the OSCP. Like I talked to the cyber mentor, and you can watch that in if you look into the videos on my channel. To get into the OSCP and to have like more chances of actually successfully getting your exam in the first attempt, I would say that you'd have to have at least very decent knowledge of Linux and the terminal and Bash. and also networking, the penetration testing methodology, and basic cybersecurity skills. Because if you don't know anything about computers and jump straight into the OSCP, I'm not saying it's not possible to get it in the first attempt, but it might be more difficult to you. So if there are chances for you to get a certification that's more like basic than the OSCP, go for it and then see if you can learn some more. If that certification doesn't give you networking skills and basic bash and Linux, try to learn those. You can learn them for free, and you can also practice. You can learn for free on YouTube and practice on platforms. I would say at this point, Attack Defense Labs is a really good platform. Their price is like $40 a month. It's well worth it. And then go for the OSCP. But then again, if you're a fast learner, you can just jump straight into the OSCP because they give you all the materials you need to actually be successful in the exam. So hopefully that answers your questions. Okay, so we're almost 30 minutes in and there are 18 of you here. So shoot your questions. I'm gonna be here for a couple of more minutes. Okay, so when can I know that I'm ready for the OSCP? Good question. When I went into the exam, so Yash, when I went into the OSCP exam, I didn't feel that I was prepared. So I don't think I can answer that question. I just went for it. I went for the exam saying that, okay, so whatever it is, if I'm not gonna able to make like good progress in the first 7 or 8 hours, I'm just gonna leave it and try again later when I'll be more prepared. But then a couple of hours have passed, I've made little progress, and probably 7 hours in or 8 hours in, I decided that let me just go for a couple of more hours, and I kept making little progress, and it was like almost 24 hours when I decided that's it, let me just submit it and see how it is. So I know people that have been very confident in their skills and have failed the OSCP exam in the first attempt. But I also know like people, like I don't consider myself an expert, more like beginner to intermediate, or I know people even more beginner than me that actually went into the exam and actually got it in the first attempt. And one of the things, or one of the things that all of these beginners share in common is the fact that they took sufficient time to go through the materials, because offensive security gives you all the materials you need to succeed in the exam. And a lot of students actually just jump right into the labs and focus only on the labs for the entire time they bought for the OSCP. And I'm not saying that it's a bad way to go, but more people actually fail if they do that, from what I know. So more people that I know actually fail by doing that, instead of just taking sufficient time to go through all the materials that offensive security have provided them, and then after going through the materials, they would actually start looking into the labs. All right, let's see. Hello, Z the Eagle. Greetings, greetings from India. Greetings from Romania, my friend. What kind of stuff? So generics, yeah. What kind of stuff would you recommend for a practical semester? In my case, I study computer science, and the practical is in the 5th semester. Currently thinking what I should go for. So generics, I need a little bit more information on that. What's a practical semester? What are your options? Okay, Hema Kumar. do we need to do enough boxes in Hack the Box and Volhub before we register for PWK for OSCP? You do not, but it might help you a lot if you do. I would go with Volhub and then with Hack the Box. I haven't been doing any Volhub or Hack the Box in the past year, so but I did quite a lot of that before I started, before getting into the OSCP. Okay, let's see. Thank you very much for your answer. I'm practicing for the OSCP by doing hack the box like machines on the website and Volhub machines. Have you got any other tips for prepping for the OSCP? Well, I'm actually going to repeat myself. Bash, so basic bash and Linux commands. What else? Networking. And I would also recommend you actually look into the penetration testing methodology. Hopefully that answers your question, AE. Dre. What's that? S. Miller. Hello Vlad, I am an aspiring network pentester. I've heard that show your knowledge, you can blog about it. Which blogging sites would you recommend? Well, this is a really good question, my friend. And I'm gonna be a little bit biased now. So you can blog on a lot of websites. But one of the websites that I found like super clean and super hackerish today is a Hacker Noon. So I would actually either start, you just have to sign up for an account and you can just start writing about whatever you want to write about. You can also do that on medium.com, but Medium is a bit more clean, more like, I don't know, blank, if I can put it that way. Whereas Hacker Noon seems like more, I don't know, colorful, more geared towards uh, cybersecurity and more geared towards geeks like us. And there are like 2 or 3 more similar websites to Hacker Noon that don't come to mind just now, but if I remember, I'm actually going to link to them in the description of this video. You can also do that on, so this is all for free. So Hacker Noon is free, Medium is free. But what I've seen yesterday on Medium, which is how I got into Hacker Noon, is that they don't actually let you watch as many or read as many blogs as you want. So they kind of started restricting your access in terms of how many blog posts you can read in a month, or stories, Medium stories. I think they're limited to just a few, and that's not okay. So I think a lot of people are going to move away from Medium, and I am one of them, which is why I found Hacker Noon. And of course, there are other platforms. You just have to look for them. But my current suggestion would be Hacker Noon. Yeah, you can also do, I think, on github.io. You can also write on github.io. But anyways, hopefully that helps you. Zeta Eagle, which is the best book to learn XSS and SQL behind the firewall, like blind ones? Well, to be honest, I don't have much experience on SQL injection aside of the basics and XSS. I know that there are people that only look for that. Best book to learn XSS. I don't know. You can just start with a book that I usually recommend is the Web Application Hacker's Handbook, but that's like it's still relevant. It's like 2011. But you can look into Peter Jaworski's more recent books like Web Hacking One-on-One, which you can get for free on HackOne, and also his even more recent book, which is called Real World Bug Hunting. So I would look into that. He does go into a few details on XSS, but I would be more current in terms of hunting for XSS and SQL injection by actually following people who are very successful at finding XSS. So I don't know a lot of people because who are specialized on XSS, because I don't follow people necessarily who do or only focus on XSS, because I'm mostly focused on broken access controls, indirect object references, and stuff like that. But what I would suggest is to go to Pentester Land and look for the reports. Do a search on the website for reports for people who actually found XSS, and actually look for the most recent ones, and you'll get a lot of insight from that. Hopefully that helps. So Pentester Land, it's pentester.land. All right. Shrikant Shanoy. So there are two different networks, an IT department and development environment, and you're connected to a VPN named students, provided that the firewall is in between the network. What is this? I mean, is this some sort of certification question? How do you interact with those environments? If you're talking about the OSCP, I think the knowledge is in the resources. So I cannot answer that question. And how to get better at buffer flow exploitations, buffer overflow exploitations. Well, there are quite a, I don't have any videos on buffer overflow, but I know there are quite a few very good videos on buffer overflow on YouTube. And there's also a platform for reverse engineering if you have a lot of challenges for reverse engineering. And I talked about this in a video which I did with Hackersploit. He's more into reverse engineering, so I'll make sure to look into that. But the platform was crackmes.one. So crackmes.one. That's a platform with a lot of challenges on reverse engineering, and you find a lot of write-ups, and a lot of them are buffer overflows. You look into the write-ups, you actually try to replicate what they've done there, and that's how you actually get better by practicing. You can also practice. I haven't looked into Attack Defense Labs if in their buffer overflow section or in their reverse engineering section, but I assume that out of their 1600 challenges and real world scenarios, they have some on buffer overflows. Okay, Federico, is it worth doing? Is it worth? Oh, hey, Federico, you're one of the members of the inner team, inner squad. So for those of you who don't know, actually YouTube enabled memberships for my channel. So if you go to my homepage, you can click on join and you get to join the inner circle. There are 3 tiers, so go and check that out. Federico is one of the members. Is it worth, so Federico, is it worth doing the CompTIA Security Plus and Network Plus? And I downloaded a manual from Prepway for the Network Plus, and it's 1500 pages. I got kind of overwhelmed. Wow, 1500 pages, that's a lot. The Web Application Hackers Handbook is like 900 pages, and I'm only on page 300 or so. I do believe it can be overwhelming, and you have to avoid burnout, Federico. So I don't have much knowledge on what Security Plus and Network Plus entail. From my understanding, I think they are beginner level certifications, and if they're beginner level certifications, and if you're a beginner, I would actually take the time to go through them. Of course, there might be sections in that 1500 manual or page manual or book that might not be as important as others, but I would, like I said, I would take the time. If I am a beginner, I would take the time to go through them. Like, for example, I posted on my Discord server a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was only 2 weeks ago, about a book which is called Internet Infrastructure. And it's a really good book that I mean, gets you through networking from a very, very ground level all the way up. So it takes you uh, through all the layers of the OSI model, and it gets you to, unlike other books, it gets you through all the way to cloud infrastructure, and it goes into detail in that. And it actually, I want to understand at a fundamental level how things work, how networks communicate to each other, how computers communicate to each other at different levels of the, let's say, for example, the OSI model, like I said. So that book is like 800 or 900 pages, but I'm going to take as much time as I need to go through it, because I know that once I finish it and once I go through it step by step and discover processes and discover a lot of stuff in it, I know that in time that's going to help me as a penetration tester and as a bug bounty hunter. So it all pays. If you're not in a rush, take sufficient time, go through the 1500 pages, go through your certifications, Network Plus, Security Plus, and then move on to something more interesting. Not necessarily more interesting, because I can imagine that Network Plus and Security Plus are interesting, but get to something more difficult, I would say. Hope that helps, Federico. Bug bounty and OSCP, which should I focus more? Well, if I were to make that decision, if I were doing the OSCP right now, I would be focusing on the OSCP. So genetics, practical semester is one whole semester, 6 to 7 months, in which you don't go to the university but work in a company instead. I could basically go for anything I want, but I want to get into cybersecurity. Well, I'm pretty sure. So I assume that you are in the United States, okay? So I'm really sure that if you're in a medium medium-sized population city, there are at least one or two companies specialized in cybersecurity. And at least so they can either be blue team or red team, or a combination of both, or even a combination of other colors, because now there are purple teams and other colors. So what I would if blue team is something that, so blue team means more towards defending stuff, while red team is more towards attacking, penetration testing. um, I would go and intern for a company. So if I were in your situation, I would actually go as an intern for a company as a penetration tester, because I would actually learn since that company already has penetration testers, I would actually learn real world skill from someone who's already doing that. So yeah, that's what I would do. Okay, so yeah, look for penetration testing internships. So generics. So I'm not sure if there is anything comparable to a practical semester from where you are. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question. Okay, Zuli or Zoli, who are the best technically in cybersecurity? State level security researchers? I don't know. I mean, I think there are really good people at every level. So I would actually say that the best are a team of really good people. Those are the best. So I would say the strength is in the team rather than the individual. All right, so I'm gonna answer 2 or 3 more questions, and then I'm actually going to close this one. And maybe I'm also gonna do small video clips of this live stream, because I know a lot of you guys like to digest information in small chunks. Anyways, let's see. me just grab a sip. So Hema, I am getting stuck at using default already available word list while doing fuzzing specific URL. How can we generate or create word list according to target? There's a tool called, what was it called? Damn it. There's a tool specific for actually creating customized word lists. I'm actually gonna link it in the description of this video because it doesn't come to mind, and if it's gonna come to mind, I'm gonna say it. But there's at least one tool which what it does, it actually looks for the information or the text in a web page, and it actually tries to build a word list out of some of the more uncommon words in that word list. So it's not gonna create a word list from tools from words such as connection words like in, and, this, that, but it's gonna actually create word lists on the less common words. I hate it that it doesn't come to mind now, but anyway, I'll be linking it in the description. Good question though. What is your bug hunting, bug bounty methodology? Well, my bug bounty hunting methodology is something that I've been developing over the last 7 months. So it's there's a lot in it, and it's an ongoing process of developing it. Okay, so generics, or let's see. I hated that I don't remember the name of that tool. What percentage of your time, so this is Rob Connor, what percentage of your time do you spend learning new techniques? Well, I don't think I can quantify it from the top of my head in terms of percentages, but I do try to actively and consciously learn new stuff, but not like every day, so that I wouldn't be able to cement or solidify the knowledge that I've learned like 2 days ago or 1 week ago. I try to spend sufficient time on some sort of on a technique, for example, until I find it like comfortable. And then at some point in time, I'm actually trying to add to that knowledge some new knowledge so that I'm not bored. Let me give you a specific example. So let's say that I've been using Burp or Zap as a proxy to intercept requests. All right, so let's say I've been using Burp for 2 months. I think in 2 months, by actually practicing and working with Burp actively or with Zap, and also seeing how other people work with this tool, I've gathered like decent knowledge using it. What I would be doing is to actually look at other similar tools, because not they wouldn't be like exactly the same. I would be looking at Fiddler, for example. This would be a way for me to actually learn some new things that would add on top of my knowledge on intercepting, or actually looking at the traffic that goes through or from an application. And Burp, Zap, and Fiddler aren't exactly the same thing, but they're very similar, especially if you compare Burp and Zap with Fiddler. Like, for example, Fiddler in of itself is really interesting, and I'm giving you this example because I've actually experimented with it for the past some weeks, and I find it more convenient to actually take requests from Fiddler and modify them in Burp. So I would take a request, I'm looking at the traffic, it seems to be flowing more smoothly through Fiddler, because I don't have to step into the process as much as I would have to step in if I'm using Burp as an intercept. Fiddler, I'm just opening it, I'm taking the request that I want, I'm filtering it the way that I want, and then I'm actually taking it into Zap or into Burp and modify it accordingly. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. How to know more about privilege escalation? I mean, there are many for a certain OS, but how do I identify a particular vulnerability in privilege escalation? Well, in the real world, it depends on your context. In the real world, depending on the bug, so for example, if you're doing penetration testing and you found a SQL injection, which tends to be less often these days, what I'm trying to say is that it's context dependent. Whatever the context you are in, you will further investigate how to do privilege escalation because it would be inefficient for you as a brain or mental process to try to memorize or to try to know exactly what to do when you're encountered with a certain situation because there are millions, if not more than that, scenarios to actually do privilege escalation. What it really matters is that you know exactly how to investigate when you are in a certain scenario. So, for example, if I encounter myself in a SQL injection scenario, I would actually have to know how to investigate, how to do SQL and how to privilege escalation, how to do privilege escalation from SQL injection. And there are many ways. Like, for example, if you uh, you can use the I think it's the XP command shell, which you can send commands through. Uh, you can send operating system commands to the server through SQL injection. You can also look into load into file, uh, which is another. So you can create a query with load into file. You could also be reading files. There are quite a few ways. Plus, there are also the inherent exploits that have been discovered, for different versions of whatever server you are into. Not sure if this was really specific, but hopefully that it has been somewhat helpful. Okay, generics, thank you a lot for the info. You're welcome. Yeah, so Yash, the tool, well, so yeah, good point. The tool is CEWL, so it could be cool or Seul. That's the tool that you're actually using to generate word lists. Look it up. I think it comes pre-installed with Kali Linux and with Parrot OS, and it'll generate. It can get very complex. You can do a lot of things with it, but to generate a very basic word list, you just need to provide one or two parameters. Okay, Yash. So good point. There's also Crunch, of course. So best program for beginners for bug bounties. Best programs. Well, for starters, I would say that you shouldn't be, or I don't know, maybe you should be incentivized by money, but probably the uh, best programs are some of the programs that are unpaid because on those type of programs there aren't going to be as many bug hunters looking into them as there are in paid programs. So you would have higher chances of getting something as not being duplicate if you look into a program that doesn't pay bounties, but maybe thanks the hunter or the researcher, or maybe they give them some kind of swag and all that stuff. So I would look into those types of programs. And I would also look into programs with large scopes because there's a lot of room to experiment with. Okay, guys, so we're closing in to 1 hour, and I would actually need to kind of close this because I'm waking up at 5 a.m. So in like 6 or 7 hours from now. All right, so I'm going to be doing another live question really soon. So it's not the end of the world. If you have more questions, you can just leave them in the comments of this video. I would also suggest you get onto the Discord server. I think I'm gonna link the Discord server in the description of this video as well when I have time, which is probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And yeah, that's all about it. Thanks for being here, guys, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in the next live stream. Okay, bye bye.